And we're live. It is Thursday, February 6th, the year of the majority's Lord 2025. And because DEI is no longer permitted, we're not allowed to acknowledge that if you mention that it's not the year of everybody's Lord, then Pam Bondi will show up at your door and press criminal charges against you. It is 8 o'clock a.m., and I would like to point out that the sun is not shining, the birds are not chirping, but you are watching Dog Shirt TV, and it is an effing revolution in morning television. And one reason it is an effing revolution in morning television is that we're going to do something today that has literally never been done in the history of morning television. We are going to have a show that is composed in whole or in part by rants about specific countries. Holly is going to rant about Trump's treatment of South Africa. Nastia is going to show up and rant about the Arctic and Russia. I've invited the estimable Minna Olander to show up because she actually knows a lot about the Arctic. And although who knows if she actually will. But, you know, you can't get this on Morning Joe, random people ranting about other countries. But first, before we turn to that revolutionary aspect of morning television, Holly, you attended a protest yesterday.
I did, and I think this might be my new career is just going to all the protests that will probably happen. I've already missed a couple though, so I'm not doing very good. But I went to the Treasury on what was that? What's today? Thursday? I went on
Today's
Tuesday.
Thursday.
Okay, so I went to the Treasury one on Tuesday. I'm very bad at crowd estimates, but there were a lot of people there. It
I
was
mean, a lot meaning 100, a lot
no, no,
meaning a
no,
thousand, a
thousands.
lot
There were
meaning
thousands of people.
10,000.
Yeah, so on 15th Street that runs between the Treasury, the side of the Treasury, and then other buildings, I would say the street was blocked off and full from, say, F to H. Maybe not all the way to H. Maybe like to where Pennsylvania intersects, near the White House, in front of the White House. So it was like thousands of people. And there were about 24 members of Congress that were there and gave speeches and so on and so forth. And they said they had tried to go into the Treasury and meet with the secretary and that they were not allowed to enter the building. I don't know if that's true or what the backstory is there. But yeah, it felt good. And so I thought I was really brilliant to discover that if you put an F in front of Elon, it becomes felon.
Yeah, a whole lot of people have discovered
Yeah,
that
so
recently.
that was my big epiphany at
But
the rally.
here's my question, Holly. Does it become felon or does it become felon?
I had a friend in grad school who had a cat named G. Gordon Kitty, a convicted feline.
Yeah, it's kind
Um,
of like that. It's not clear
yeah.
to me
No,
that
it's a felon because see, I put president felon, and see, that's like a double because it's
right.
Elon. It's saying Elon is president, but then it's
Also
also
saying that he's a felon.
well, it's also saying that the president is a felon, which he
Right.
is. So
Right. Well, he's a convicted felon, in fact.
he's literally a felon, and so I thought it was good to do president felon. Many people had this idea though, so.
So do you feel deflated with unoriginality, or do you feel empowered by the mind sync of the group?
I just think going to a protest, you feel bolstered
Yeah.
definitely by community. So
So
that's why I keep going. I think who is organizing just, we need to fill the mall. We need to just fill the whole thing, because this is what's happening is demand filling the mall. Like, when has there, since the civil rights movement, when has there ever been a more dire situation?
So that is interesting. I have been thinking about a different kind of protest.
With the
Um,
lasers?
well, no, no, I'm always thinking about laser protests, and there's going to be a laser protest shortly, but I don't want to do it before February 22nd because on February 22nd, I have a date with a certain building, and I don't want um I'm going to branch out to, sorry, Nastya, I'm going to branch out to non-Russian diplomatic facilities over time, but I don't want to dilute the brand before the anniversary of the war because that would be like, cheating on Ukraine, and that seems wrong. So, but I'm thinking about laser protests. But more
Please.
importantly, I have a concept of a protest that needs to be filled out,
Okay.
which is something that everybody can do wherever they are, that's entirely legal, that will somehow gum up the works of the Trump administration.
Ooh.
Something, think of a distributed denial of service attack, IRL, right? Um, you know, I write a letter to, I don't know, Pam Bondi saying blah, blah, blah. Nobody cares, right? But 50 million people do that. And the Justice Department has a uh, mail management problem. Now, that's a bad example because I don't think creating a mail management problem is going to gum up the works. But like, I do think, like, I want to think of something that we can all do, kind of that'll catch on like the ice bucket
Mm.
challenge, only that,
Maybe we could do that, but that's dumb.
but it's dumb and it doesn't, like, if I pour ice over
It's
my
very
head,
cold.
the
Maybe in
government
July.
doesn't care. I want to think of something that we can do that's like the distributed equivalent of having a die-in the middle of Times Square,
Mm.
um, which was, what our age cohort did to protest AIDS once upon a time. But what's the virtual equivalent of that? And I want to identify that and get that going. So that's my concept for a protest, something that everybody can participate in, that's totally legal, that'll catch on, that you don't have to travel to the mall to do, and that will somehow fuck everything up.
Well,
Sorry,
that's a
Jonathan.
little riddle. That's a
Yeah,
nice
just
riddle.
think about it. Like,
Okay. Think
all
about it.
right, we are here.
Good
Nastya, it
morning,
is good to
Nastia.
see your face. Nastya sent me the cutest picture of the baby this morning, waving from her stroller. And Nastya has a big announcement to make, actually.
I
The
do.
question is whether she even knows what it is. She does. Nastya is coming to Washington in a
Ah,
Oh,
couple, and and
yes.
why are you coming to Washington, Nastya?
So many reasons, but the main one,
No, what
I
is the
was at the
official
embassy.
reason?
I was just at the embassy this morning, so I've got it down. I've been asked this morning already. We are launching the podcast that we've been working
What
on.
podcast is that? And was this dog involved in creating it? This
Was
podcasting
it?
dog?
So many
No.
questions you're asking me today that I'm so confused by.
Well, this is the
Dog?
podcasting dog shirt.
Okay, apparently. Okay. Well, anyway, so Lawfare and I as part of Lawfare has been making a podcast about Ukraine-US relations and the history of the relationship, covering everything from the 90s to the present day. Super exciting, super interesting. We've already listened to a few drafts and it sounds incredible. And we're planning to launch somewhere around the anniversary. And so we have a bunch of launch events that we want to do in DC and other places. And so that's the official reason for why I'm coming to DC.
Including at Brookings on February 24th. There
10
will
a.m.
be a event that we are doing in partnership with our colleagues in the foreign policy program, at which we are going to launch this event. So you guys, for all of you who are in the DC area, Brookings, I think it'll be up on the announcement will be up on the site. Please come. You can meet Nastia in person.
Sounded
I will
like
come. I'll definitely come.
something like
Yeah.
Nasta, like
That's a Monday. Monday the
24th. It's easy to remember because it's the third
Oh, yeah,
anniversary
yeah.
of the
Of the
full-scale
war.
invasion. I promise you that Russian soldiers will not invade the Falk Auditorium at Brookings, but we will have Fiona Hill will be speaking.
oh, she
Oh
agreed.
wow.
Yeah, she's going to be
Oh
on
my
the
God.
panel.
I'm so excited.
And we're gonna and is featured rather prominently in the podcast for
Yes.
reasons completely unrelated to the reasons that she is famous. She's or
Actually,
almost unrelated. What's that?
isn't she famous as like a Russia Putin expert person?
Well, she is known in the policy community for that. She's
That's
a
how I know.
celebrity in the United States because of her testimony during the Trump
Really?
impeachment investigation.
I'm
Well,
Uh,
we don't. Celebrity might be too strong, but she's
so out of the
known.
context, apparently.
Yeah,
She's a nerd. She's what I call a nerd celebrity.
yeah, she's
Yes, my kind of celebrity. Okay.
Mine too. Ben is a nerd celebrity.
Yes,
but
exactly.
not at the level that Fiona is.
No,
Fiona,
I wouldn't say so. But
Fi-
you know,
Fiona has a cult
ambition,
following.
Ben. Do a few
Ambition.
more parody videos with me.
You know, the last time I did a parody video with you, we got an Elon Musk tweet. So
That's
I'm
right.
I'm
But
I
really?
think, oh yeah.
Oh yeah, you don't know that anyway. That's a whole thing.
Yeah, we can unpack
Yeah,
that in chat.
And a Charlie Kirk tweet. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm coming for Charlie Kirk personally next time.
just-
So.
All right, so who wants to go first? South Africa rant or Russia in the Arctic rant?
Maybe I should go first because if Mina is coming on, and that goes with the Arctic.
All right, so
Maybe-
you go first.
maybe
and
Mina
then
will come on.
We'll go from summer to winter.
Yeah. Okay. First of all, I had a piece in the Bulwark a week ago comparing Trump to Zuma, and so what we have in the U.S. right now
And you
is.
had a piece in Lawfare
And I did have a
about
piece.
Sudan.
Yes, I
and
did.
I believe you're on the Lawfare podcast today talking
Yes, I do.
about
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
don't just flack your Bulwark stuff over here, Holly
I'm
Berkley
sorry, but
Fletcher.
it's relevant to the rant, so that's why I mentioned. So anyway, you should read it because what South Africa experienced under Zuma, they called state capture, and it's much lower scale, obviously, because South Africa is a much lower scale country. No offense to them, but they had a state capture, and that's what we're having now. And it just so happens that ours involves someone of South African origin who is creating a lot of trouble for South Africa. So you may have seen the tweet or whatever you call that, truth, whatever. He's on a tear. Trump is on a tear regarding South Africa stealing white people's land. And and then now Rubio is boycotting the G20 because it is in Johannesburg. And so yes, the South Africa is P&G to Trump yet again. But the backstory is this. So in his first term, I was an Africa analyst working on South Africa. And his very first tweet on Africa, on any African country, was this exact thing. He put out a tweet accusing South Africa of not only stealing white land, but killing white farmers.
Can I ask a dumb question?
Yeah.
Is he just confusing South Africa with Zimbabwe, or
Well,
is there a problem
There's
with?
a reason why he did this, okay?
Okay.
So there is a lobby in South Africa. I think it's called AgriForum. I can't remember the name because I'm elderly, but of white farmers, white Afrikaner. There's still a lot of racism in South Africa. I know that's probably shocking to everyone, given it's been like 30 entire years since the end of apartheid. But a lot of the white Afrikaners are actually still quite racist. Again, very shocking. So they have
Holly,
a lot.
your mic is rubbing against
Oh,
your
sorry. How's that? Can you
much
hear me now?
better. Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. So they have a lobby group, and when Trump came into office, they saw a opportunity and sent a little road show to Washington. And they met with Congress. They had White House meetings. More importantly, they had Fox News meetings. They met with Tucker Carlson, and then he had on his show a rant on from them, propaganda about South Africa expropriating, illegally seizing white people's land
But
and killing
can I
white.
ask a dumb question? Like, I know that there was a real issue in Zimbabwe about
I'm
land
I'll get there.
expropriation,
Zimbabwe's
but
separate,
yeah,
but yeah.
but I don't have the impression that South Africa has been expropriating people's
I'm
land.
getting there, Ben. This is
Okay.
just the backstory.
Okay.
Follow me. Stay with me.
I'm
Stay
with
me.
you.
So Trump saw this Tucker Carlson show and tweeted this lot misinformation and created a whole incident. And now he's doing it again. But now it's probably coming from Elon Musk. So the most recent impetus is because they did pass land reform has been something they've looked at and tried to discuss for since the end of apartheid, because obviously land was taken from black people and they were settled on reserves, and white people have all the land in South Africa. And it's a very emotive issue. It's very it's very emotional, and it goes to the heart of South African history, the dark South African history. So they actually have passed a land reform bill, which is controversial. Okay. But they're a democracy. It went through the legislative process. It's being challenged in court. The courts are very good, have a lot of integrity, a lot of independence, and they will decide on the Constitution whether it can stand. But it does not allow white people's land is not being seized. It allows for basically what we would call eminent domain, I believe, where if there's a public interest, usually what they've done in the past in very limited cases is like a lot of it's urban. There'll be like an abandoned building, and they'll take the land and repurpose it and try to settle people on it. There is compensation. There's agreement from the white people, the white farmers. Anyway, the bottom line is it is the result of a democratic process in a sovereign nation that has a very complicated history on land, and they are not taking white people's land, okay? And they're not killing white farmers, other than just criminals who kill a lot of people in South Africa because it has high crime, because of partly because of massive inequality. So this is not anyway. And now the South African president has called Elon Musk to try to work it out. Elon Musk knows better. Elon Musk is a racist South African, okay, white South African. And he's fed all this to Trump. So now the poor president of South Africa is trying to patch things up. We don't have a good relationship with South Africa anyway, because we had Nelson Mandela on a terrorist watch list like well into the 90s.
And to be fair, South Africa's foreign policy in a lot of areas is quite destructive.
South Africa's foreign policy, mainly on Israel-Palestine.
Oh, not just.
Well, that's the main issue.
It's really great on Ukraine, too.
Yeah, oh, that's true. That's true. Yeah, no. That's because they are aligned. It all goes back to apartheid. I'm not excusing them. I'm explaining. We were on the side of apartheid until the very last minute. And the Russians and the communist bloc supported the ANC. And they've never forgotten.
Another rant, by the way. Like this divide in Africa.
Yeah. Oh, believe me, they need to let go of the history and wake up, because Russia is a very destructive force right now in Africa, much less in the past. But I'm just saying you can understand why they're not huge fans of the US and why I think by default they lean that way. So agree. Their foreign policy is not good, but I understand the impetus. But it does not change the fact that they are a democracy. This is their internal process and their politics, and they have perfectly all right to do their land reform however they see fit. And it does not violate property rights according to their own constitution. This is nothing like Zimbabwe, which you're referring to, where thugs were basically given permission to invade land in Zimbabwe, just seize it, thugs, and kill the people and collapse the economy because the thugs didn't know how to do agriculture. And agriculture was the whole basis of the Zimbabwean economy. That is not happening. It will not happen in South Africa because they are they're also they're a real economy, and there's a huge business interest that has repeatedly kept the government accountable when they do stupid shit. Unlike our business community. Okay.
All right. That's rant number 1. So,
do you have any questions?
Yes. Has the United States actually taken any material action other than, rhetorical falsehoods?
Well, he said they're suspending all aid to South Africa.
Yeah, but they suspended all aid to everybody.
Yeah, but last time they targeted South Africa with tariffs. So we'll see. South Africa has a lot of trade with the U.S.
Right.
So we'll see what they do.
Nastasiia, do you have any questions about Holly's rant?
I actually just had a question of, I know the question might sound like idiotic, but I was wondering what you actually did at the CAA. Like, what was your focus? Like, regional
on
or
Africa.
whatever?
Yeah.
On Africa? Okay. Because I didn't know.
Holly was a hit woman
with the cactus.
Which is why I was like,
I was the assistant of the cactus who was a hit
degree
cactus.
that I can know what you did.
Who ranged all over Africa, taking out enemies of the state.
That's right.
Gotcha.
And she did it with a smile on her face.
Well, the cactus did it with a smile.
That's right. So, Nastasiia, you have a rant as well.
You know me, I always have a rant at any given moment.
Yeah, but you don't usually text me in the morning when I say you should come on the show and say, can I rant about, and then a subject. But this morning, let me just share with you what our conversation was. I said, you should come on the show this morning. You should join Dogshirt TV this morning. Nastasiia, what is it about? Me, no idea. Nastasiia, am I the only one joining? Me, no idea. Nastasiia, want to hear me rant about Russia in the Arctic? 3 crying with laughter emojis. Me, yes. Nastasiia, great, I'm in. So
that's basically all the planning that happens for this show.
That's kind of the planning level.
It's really an ad hoc situation.
And then I suggested that we invite Minna to join us because Minna actually is an expert on the Arctic and grew up in the Arctic. So we invited Minna. We haven't heard from her. It's, the middle of the afternoon in Stockholm as it is in Kiev. But Nastasiia, the floor is yours. Rant about Russia in the Arctic. Go.
Okay. Thank you. So I've been utterly obsessed with this subject because since we're launching this show soon, the one about the US and Ukraine, my mind has been kind of looking for other things that I want to do and research and work with. And so I've gone through several topics that, this meme where like any writer gets the idea, thinks it's genius, and then it like goes down to no, it's shit. So this has been me for the past 2 months, where I'm like, every week I have this incredible pitch that's the most genius thing ever. And by the end of the week, it's not. But this one I actually think is really good.
Yeah, I know nothing about that. So,
And I didn't know anything about it either. So that's the thing. I've like discovered this part of the earth for myself. Like I didn't know anything about it. I mean, I knew that like it's geopolitically important, great power competition, blah blah blah, but I like never actually looked into it. And then once I did, I like shocked by how interesting it is. And so I think it would make for a great big piece of content. But why it's interesting is
So are
that
you moving to Svalbard?
yes, essentially. Oh my god, okay, I'm like jumping on the chair talking about it. It's so interesting, I think, because there is like at least four incredibly interesting dimensions. Like there's a climate change dimension, obviously, and the Arctic is very special because like there things are much worse than anywhere else, and things are already very bad everywhere. So in the Arctic, it's like this microcosm of like catastrophe.
except it
That's
could be the solution. We could all move up there because it'll be nice. The weather will be nice.
I don't think it works that way.
You don't think it works that way?
No,
Oh
I think
man,
this
I
is
was gonna
probably
build me a house in the Arctic.
yeah,
It's true, like if you wait 1,000 years,
or that. Yeah.
right? But it's a there's an interim problem.
Yeah. And so then there's the climate change problem. Then there is the Trump problem in the Arctic because he wants to buy Greenland. Um, and that interest of his is interesting because of the climate change problem that's like a looming catastrophe. The ice is melting and a bunch of countries want to start shipping stuff through it because it's much faster to ship through the Arctic Circle than to ship through the Suez Canal, which is what's happening right now. And so it's this kind of really weird thing of like, in my mind at least, that Trump thinks that climate change is a hoax, but it is climate change that makes Greenland look so attractive and lucrative to him. So he doesn't think that it's a real thing, but he is kind of like using it. Like if someone tells him, "Oh, the Arctic is warming," he's gonna be like, "Yeah, that's great. Let's like sell stuff and like
And
trade."
this is very unusual for him because usually he's completely coherent on a logical, everything is logically
And
fit
Right.
together like
consistent,
a,
yeah, everything.
yeah. So usually he has a very coherent ideology of the world. And so this is really a departure that
Very
there would
weird.
be a gap there, right, Ben and Nastia?
I'm still waiting for Russia to end up. So far, this isn't a rant. This is like a kind of joyful. I discovered that the Arctic is interesting,
Yeah.
and yeah,
Right.
exists and is interesting. I'm still waiting for the part
The
where
Russian
there's a rant.
Right. Well, okay. Well, so that there's that whole thing, global trade, everyone wants to trade there and stuff like that, and ship, not trade there. And then there is the whole thing of Russia trying to militarize the region and opening a bunch of military bases because Russia is the Arctic country that has the biggest share of land that's in the Arctic. And so apparently since the fall of the Soviet Union, or since the 2000s maybe, they've reopened like 50 old military bases there. And there's a bunch of very interesting spying going on. I'm a typical young human like that. I think spy stories are very cool. So
That's where the cactus was,
including with
He was there because that's where a lot of cactuses are
right,
in the Arctic.
including, by the way, there's like spy stories with cetaceans, spy whales and spy belugas.
insane.
It's crazy stuff.
Right. So there's a lot of that. There is, Finland and Sweden and Norway and Russia doing a lot of crazy shit there. There's an amazing piece about it in the New Yorker. It's a very long New Yorker style about spy wars in the Arctic. Super interesting. Another like extremely interesting to me component about this is that like there's a bunch of territory in the Arctic that's claimed by several countries we don't even know who the Arctic belongs to. And so the process of how you like prove that this is your land is super interesting. Like the country has to go dig into the ocean floor or whatever it's called, like dig stuff out of there and then make whatever analysis and prove that that chunk of land is the same kind of land, like geologically. That's the land that makes their country. Like it's so cool. And so now there is like Denmark and Canada and Russia that have done that and say that this one piece of land in the Arctic is all theirs. And there's like these active disputes happening. And then there's Svalbard as well, which is insane because it's legally part of Norway, but it has two Russian settlements there, and it's so absurd.
And
Because
anybody in the world is allowed to live there without a visa.
I was just gonna say because there was this agreement signed. Maybe Ben, you remember the year when, but I don't remember.
It's old.
Yeah, it's an old agreement that basically says that, okay, this is legally Norway, but anyone can come and live here and work here and do whatever they want. So there are these two little towns that have always been populated by Russians and Ukrainians. They're mining towns. And one of them is Pyramida, in Russian at least. It's like this ghost town because it's like the most northern town in the world or something. It's like extremely up there. You have to like drive on these like small vehicles for 6 hours.
Svalbard is not like, easily like it's itself pretty remote.
Yeah, but it's like there, but also the farthest north you can go on Svalbard. It's like in the middle of nowhere. There's this one mining company. And when the Soviet Union fell apart, the Russians no longer had money to pour into the town to like keep it running. And so they like stopped financing it. And like there were 2,000 people or something, and they all just left. And so there's this town sitting in the middle of absolutely nowhere with like Lenin statues and communist symbols. It's like frozen in time of the Soviet Union. But of course, the Russians are using that. There is a functioning hotel there. And because tourists think this is cool, so they come and they need to have lunches somewhere. And there are all of these like Russian guys with guns because you have to protect yourself from polar bears who give them tours of this facility. And on May 9th, a bunch of Russians from Svalbard who live in other areas, they come to this specific town to do their like...
You got to explain what May 9th is to Russians.
Oh, sorry. Victory Day, right. To me, it's like second nature, but Victory Day is when the Russians celebrate Victory Day. It's like the sacred day for them. Anyway, and they go there to like fly in there. Yeah. To this, on helicopters, to this middle of nowhere to do their celebrations.
So just to be clear to everybody, I'm estimating here, but the Arctic Circle runs, can you see my cursor here?
Yeah. Yes.
It's probably about here. And the most accessible point up north of the Arctic Circle, at least in Norway or Sweden, is a town called Narvik, which is somewhere in this zone, which is the northern point of European railways. There's a train that goes all the way north in Sweden and then cuts to the coast at a little Norwegian town called Narvik. That's at 68 degrees of the Arctic Circle, if memory serves. So Svalbard is up here, which is to say way, way, way north of that. It's and the northern coast of Svalbard is on the Arctic Ocean, and which is to say, it's frickin' far north. And
Yeah.
so by contrast, just for those who are oriented toward the North American context, so, you got Iceland all the way down here, and you're talking about the sort of northern third of Greenland, and it's basically north of anything in Canada, except the I believe this is, oh boy, I could be wrong about this. So, but I believe this is Ellesmere Island over here. And so you have to be up in what is really the high Arctic before you are in Svalbard land. Yeah. But you
It's
can move there. Anybody in the world can move there without a visa.
yeah.
So if you want to like hang out with Russian spies and be a and like take selfies of yourself in the dark with statues of Lenin, it's the place. um, and by the way, I don't know of any cool Svalbard influencers. And so, are
There
there any?
yes, there is a YouTuber. She lives there with her family. Super cool. I'm this close to messaging her.
Oh, so we got to get her on the show.
Yeah, yes.
Send her a note and tell her we want her on Dogshirt TV, because we've never had anybody from Svalbard before. Is she Norwegian or Russian or?
She's Norwegian. If she was Russian, I would not have offered to text her.
Well,
She's
we'll do the interview in Norwegian if she wants. And I have no idea how, but we'll figure out how.
Jeff just sent.
Secretary Pete, get Pete Buttigieg. He'll translate.
Exactly. Um,
Um. So yeah, Jeff just sent in the chat that there's also this global seed vault, which is another random coolest thing ever about Svalbard.
Yes, they collect all the seeds in the world,
Yeah.
because it's easy to freeze them there.
On the topic of this town that's like ghosted and there's nothing there, the Russians want to revive it and they want to build, guess what? A scientific center, a research facility with Chinese to do purely academic stuff.
Right. Um, I do not know the terms of the Svalbard Treaty enough to know how, like, whether anybody can just show up and build a research/espionage center without the consent of the Norwegian government. Um,
No, they
Who's gonna stop them? We're invading Panama and Greenland and Gaza.
well,
Like,
I would not. If I were the Russian army military bogged down in Ukraine already, losing 700,000 people, I am not sure I would pick a fight with a NATO member over Svalbard. It seems to me you would, there would be higher priorities, and I would expect the Russians to harass the Norwegians about Svalbard, but not. Um, I don't think that's where the invasion is going to come. Let's put
well,
it
if
that
you
way.
don't need a visa though, how's it an invasion? Just like keep sending people there to live in plain clothes.
Yeah,
With
I don't know.
green men but little white men.
Yeah, like how is it? How are you gonna know it's an invasion?
I don't. It's an interesting question. So what?
Another point is that there is a nuclear component. Sorry, I interrupted you. Just to make it all worse. You just said possible invasion and like conflict with NATO. The Murmansk area, which is right on the border with Finland, right? That's where a bunch of Russian nukes are stationed, and that's the shortest. It's like the closest area, the shortest distance from Russia to a NATO member or to the US is there. So it's like people who want to make dramatic points say that if Russia was to ever attack the US or NATO, like that's one of the places where it can happen because it's the shortest way for them.
Okay, so here for those who really want it are, according to my deep research on Wikipedia, which I just did seconds ago, the basic terms of the Svalbard Treaty, which is in fact more than 100 years old. I was right about
Wow.
the age. It's from 1920.
That's
Its its signatories include Denmark, France, Italy, Japan, the Netherlands, Norway, Sweden, the UK, including Australia, Canada, New Zealand, South Africa, and India, back when those were part of the UK, and the United States. So here are the terms. One, Svalbard is part of Norway. Two, Norway is allowed to collect taxes, but only enough to support Svalbard and the Svalbard government. So taxes are way lower than in mainland Norway.
Interesting.
Norway has to it has to do environmental protection. It is not allowed to discriminate against companies or citizens of every nation. They're allowed to become residents and to have access to Svalbard, including the right to fish, hunt, or undertake any type of maritime, industrial, mining, or trade activity. But they have to follow Norwegian law. Military restrictions prohibits naval bases and fortifications. So Svalbard is to remain demilitarized. That's the Svalbard Treaty. So I'm telling you, people, you want an adventure. I hear the internet is good enough to be a Svalbard YouTuber. I don't know if
Plus,
Amazon Prime delivers.
cable, and then there is no internet.
Right.
That's another topic that I didn't get to.
Yeah, so keep going.
No, it's the last one. It's the last point because this rant is way too long. But another whole dimension of the art.
I don't mean to criticize or offer critiques, but I feel like you need to up the anger for your rant. Like if it's going to qualify as a rant, you're going to have to be meaner, Nastya.
So like
I just think this is fascinating.
yeah,
I'm just excited.
but that's not
not
a
a rant, though.
That's
See,
an
you gotta be
expression of
angry.
enthusiasm.
Yeah,
The rant
you
has
gotta
to
get
be,
angry.
we got to throw the Russians out of Svalbard because they're fucking things up and they're goddamn Russian imperialists and
Yes.
Svalbard for the Norwegians.
I didn't know that that's the definition of a rant. I thought a rant is just a long, like non-stop.
No, it's anger. It's anger. Yeah.
You learn
Smile less, talk more. It's like the opposite of
Yeah,
Hamilton.
Dog Shirt TV road trip to Svalbard. Yes, please. Someone just said in the chat.
I think we should have like a Dog Shirt TV meetup
We'll
in
show.
Svalbard.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can
So-
pay for that.
Yeah,
Um,
right. I wonder how does one get to Svalbard?
That's a good question.
Have you looked into this, Nastya?
I'm like this close to booking my tickets. I think there is an airport. So probably not.
She just made that up.
Well,
No,
there's got to be either an airport or a ship because
I'm sure there is an airport.
unless I don't think those Cybertrucks don't go on water, do they?
Not yet.
They do look like a boat, I have to say. They look like one of those ducks, that like they
I've
drive
been-
from the land into the water.
I've been seeing a lot of them, and they're ugly as sin.
I don't understand. I see a lot of them here around my neighborhood because people have too much money in my neighborhood, and they're very ugly. But don't they look like? What's that?
It was just an interesting flex. People have too much money in my neighborhood.
No, they do. I mean, I'm sorry. They have too much money. We have the worst house in the whole neighborhood. Like, people are like tearing down perfectly good houses and building like these mega mansions. So they clearly have. We've been here in our modest house for a long time, but they clearly have too much money here, and they have Cybertrucks, and don't they look like those duck things that they drive? The tourists take them, and like you drive around on land, and then they go into the water.
Well, I think all people driving Cybertrucks should try
Amphibious, yes.
Basically, you didn't know this, but one of the unadvertised features of the Cybertruck is that it is amphibious. I promise it will not electrocute you if you just drive into the water. You will not drown.
That's kind of mean, Ben.
Yeah,
I don't know,
it's
man.
also not true. Don't do it. Don't try it at home. That said, just remember, if you're driving a Cybertruck, remember the words of Jesus of Nazareth. Give all your money away because it is easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for a Cybertruck driver to enter the kingdom of heaven. All right, what else should I rant about a country?
You've been to the Arctic. Can you tell me about it?
I have been above the Arctic Circle on that train line in Sweden and Finland. Sweden and sorry, and Norway. I have, as a lark, as an 18-year-old, took a train as far north as it was possible to go in Europe, which was to the town, I believe it is, of Kiruna, Kiruna. We got out and there was no place to stay that was open when the train got in, so we ended up camping out in a band shell in a park in the middle of town, and it was really cool. And then we climbed a mountain the next day, and then and it was in October. So first of all, there was snow already, but secondly, it was 12-hour days. So, it was like one of two times a year when the day lengths are relatively normal. The light is completely different from anywhere else I've ever been. Um, and um I would I would go back. Like I think like I would love to spend time in the Arctic. But I've only,
Yeah, Ben, we can discuss this.
been there for a few days. Um,
Have you
the
met any spies?
what's that?
Have you met any Russian spies?
Well, I don't know. I actually met a South
Oh,
African.
he's met Russian spies. There's no doubt about it.
No, no, no. But I mean,
That
no.
reminds
But I
me.
actually, to bring the two threads together at the station in, this was before the end of apartheid. Actually, it was 88, I think. And there was a kind of weird vagrant guy in the Kiruna train station, and he was South African Afrikaner, and he went on a long racist rant to us about uh, this was the height of the divestment movement period, and so I can bring these two rants together. I have been to the Arctic and talked with an Afrikaner there and got a racist
And I have to
rant.
say, Afrikaners are rants are they're very good at rants. They do them very, very well. If you want to know how to do a rant, Nastia, look up some Afrikaners. Just don't listen to the content because it'll be offensive.
Well, this guy was offensive. I also, it's interesting that these two conversations have merged in this subject. He explained to me very patiently that there were 22 black tribes in South Africa and one white tribe, which is really wrong. There are kind of two. But and that if the white tribe doesn't have control, there will be tribal warfare. And that was his broad justification for not having a the 80% of the population have. Um, and I remember um, I was traveling with another guy, and we were sort of incredulous about this in the way that, like, I don't talk to random strangers like this anymore, but I was 18 at the time, and did then. And I remember just being incredulous that anybody thought like this, and
It's
uh,
incredulous.
I couldn't believe it. Um, and I mean, I was aware that there were racists in the world. I don't think I'd ever confronted one whu was sort of proud of it, and
Yeah, like experience.
like there's a um
Being young is weird.
what's that?
Being young is weird.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
things
And
happen
so,
to you the first time. You're like, this is real?
and then he said to me, and I remember his accent really vividly, yes, South Africa has problems, um America doesn't have problems. And I remember thinking like, wait, that's a that's a category error. Like the problems of America today, 1988, are not the problems of America 1950. And
Yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
I can't believe I'm about to say this. To be fair to the racist Africa, please do not quote me. I mean,
And by the
so
racist Afrikaner,
there almost
wait,
was tribal warfare. I
To
mean,
be fair to the racist Afrikaner, she's referring to the one in the train station in Kiruna, Norway,
yeah.
not to the one who's the secret president of the United States right now.
Does no fairness to him. No, I mean there when at the end of apartheid, there almost was tribal warfare. Mandela actually, that's one of the big challenges he had was uniting everybody. A lot of it was overlaid with the whole whether people collaborated or not, and just the cycles of violence surrounding apartheid. And then in other countries too, when independence ended. Or when the independence came, the post-colonial countries descended into
Yes, of
conflict.
course, and that's a great
But that does
argument
not
for perpetual.
justify
Right.
why white people.
It's a great argument for perpetual colonization.
Yeah, it's not. It's.
If you let these people govern themselves,
Yeah, that's
Holly.
right. Yeah.
You guys,
So
we're planning the trip in the chat already. There are like ticket prices, flights, it's happening.
yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. Anyway, but don't
Svalbard
quote me on to be
2026.
fair to the racist African. It's actually quite stunning when you go there because I spent quite a bit of time in South Africa, and yeah, people are just the racism and the sort of racial animosity. It's almost refreshing in a way because they just have it out. Like it's just like you'll be in a market in Pretoria and like this Afrikaner, they don't like Americans either. Basically nobody likes us in South Africa. The black people don't like us because we were too late to go against apartheid. The white Afrikaners don't like us because we eventually did go against apartheid.
Is Ukraine, by the way, and like the region. The Russians don't like you, and we don't really like you either right now because you were too late to catch up.
Yeah. So nobody likes us there. And so, like I was in a market in Pretoria with a South African friend who was colored, and that's not a pejorative there, that's a category. He was a colored guy. And we were talking, and
colored means Indian, right? Or
no, it's actually a Creole.
Oh, okay.
It's like Hispanic.
Okay.
Where it's been around so long, it's its own category of ethnicity. There are Indians as well, but coloreds are like it's
like
real mix.
like mestizo.
Yeah. It's like and it goes way back, and it's its own category. It doesn't just mean mixed race; it's a specific entity. But anyway, so we were in this market, and this Afrikaner woman overheard us and objected to something, and just inserted herself and just started like berating both of us. And then my friend just like started like arguing with her, and they just had this like massive fight right in the middle of the market, and nobody really batted an eye. So the conflict is just right out there in the open. It's very
well, we have
Trump
something
era.
to aspire to here.
Yeah, we're getting there. We're getting
there. All right, we got
It's
7
honest,
minutes
I guess.
left.
I don't know.
If anybody in the audience wants to talk about Svalbard 2025 plans, pop in. Nastia, what are your plans for Washington other than launching the podcast?
Well, I'm so excited to like see so many people and to meet people I work with face to face. That's going to be so weird.
Yeah, so Nastia has been working for Lawfare for almost a year, and with the exception of me,
I haven't seen anyone.
Has never met anybody who works for Lawfare except in Zoom conversations where she's often wielding a baby.
Yes. Well, I'm coming with my husband and my baby, and my husband has never been to the US. He's actually never traveled anywhere except Turkey, because he's Crimean Tatar, and it's like it's barely traveling for them because there is such a huge diaspora there. Um, so for him, that like I'm super excited for like for him to go to this like radically different place and see everything. And we're gonna go to all the museums and do all the touristy things. And yeah, and then I'm hopefully gonna have a chat with some of my colleagues and leave the trip having a job next year. That's gonna be
Oh,
excellent.
oh, really?
Yeah, I'm hoping that's my big goal, but we don't know how it's gonna go. So maybe I'm gonna.
Interesting. I was unaware of that plan, but
You told me that I have to have a boozy
no.
chat with you,
Yes, we will have a boozy chat.
so that's what I'm saying.
With
I'm always up for boozy chats, but I can offer no jobs, just to be clear. I don't even have one for myself so
We can have
anymore.
just a
So
boozy chat.
yeah.
Lunches are
But you're welcome to have I'm open for any boozy chat at any time right now.
excellent,
So
excellent.
all right. So here is everybody's assignment. Think about legal, distributed protests. Think about the ice bucket challenge, as a kind of model. You can just get everybody to do it. Why you can get everybody to pour ice over their heads is not obvious to me, but apparently you can. But there has to be a kinetic effect. So I do X, we get 10 million other people to do X, and it has some impact. That is the protest we are looking for. The comments section of Dog Shirt Daily is open to suggestions. Think out of the box. The box is a large group of people show up at the Treasury Department, and maybe an even larger group of people show up at the mall, and then they go home. That's the box. We want to think out of the box, things that would actually, by dint of large numbers of people doing them, make a difference. Somehow, it doesn't have to revolutionize the world. Another example of that would be, charitable donations. If we could get, 10 million people to agree to give $1 a day to some type of organizations under stress, that would be, really valuable. So I'm really open-minded about what it is. The key to it is it has to be highly distributed so that there is no huge impact on. No, I don't want anybody to have to go to prison for it. It has to be distributed so that responsibility is, it's unmanageable because so many people are doing it. Number two, it has to be legal. And number three, it has to matter. Somehow. Think of, the distributed denial of service attack only in real life. Something that if you do enough of it, it matters. That's your homework assignment. Think about what a IRL DDoS attack looks like. That has to be legal. On a letter writing campaign, for example, is a DDoS attack. It's just not an effective one because people don't read, and they don't care what we think. So think about things that we can do that just gum up the works, slow things down. A whole lot of people are going to be deported. We can't prevent that. Can we slow it down?
I don't know. Please let me know because I have friends that may be deported.
Yes,
so.
exactly. Things that we can do to gum up the works, just make everything work a little bit more slowly. Think about it.
Someone suggested.
Can I just? Yeah, go ahead, Don.
I was gonna say
Nastia.
someone suggested calling in whatever hotline it is that they have and like turning in DEI hires that are like secretly or like people working in DEI
People
because
have already been doing that. I think they're going to have to shut that thing
Yeah,
down because it's so
I
dumb.
think calling in mediocre mediocre people who are selected because of their let's say boring white guy background to run things to DEI hotlines is a great idea. Um, I also that's the kind of thing we're thinking about, but something that scales. Um, and So that's your assignment. It is 9 o'clock. We're going to end.
Okay, last thing is I feel like I can't believe I feel this way, but I feel like I do have to clearly disown racism. I do not endorse Afrikaner racial ideology in any way or racist rants in
Holly,
public.
if that was not to anybody for whom that was not clear from context, don't
I'm just
watch this
saying.
show again.
I can see Charlie Kirk clipping this show and doing something bad to
Hey,
me online.
Charlie
But
Kirk,
racism is good
Charlie
in his
Kirk,
world.
Charlie
So
Kirk, do that. Let's
yeah.
let
If I
remember
end
this
up
is
on Charlie Kirk's Twitter, I will actually die. Guys, can we not? Like,
this is
still
Molly Berkley Fletcher here,
Yeah.
and
I'm in
she
intention.
is a defender of
That's a good thing for Charlie.
yeah.
So
So like make her famous. We're gonna leave it there. I got an editorial meeting in half an hour. I got a meeting with Nastia and the crew
Right.
for the Escalation podcast in a little while. We gotta wrap this up. You guys have a great day, and remember, keep your chin up and a smile on your face because it's all gonna be okay.